You know, there's this sport that has just, well, it's exploded everywhere lately.
Oh, yeah.
Pickleball, seriously. Community centers, parks. People are even, like, repurposing their driveways.
Pickleball. Yes, I've definitely seen it around. The growth is pretty amazing.
It really is. The numbers are kind of wild. It's been the fastest growing sport in America for, what, 3 years straight now?
That's right.
Saw a massive, like 51.8% jump just between 2022 and 2023.
Wow.
And over 3 years, we're talking 223.5% growth. That's according to the CIFA 2024 report.
It's incredible, isn't it? And I think a big part of that appeal is how accessible it feels.
Totally.
You see all sorts of people playing, different ages, backgrounds, seniors, younger adults, even people in wheelchairs.
Right.
It sort of blends elements of tennis, ping pong, and badminton. Played on a smaller court, badminton double size, roughly, with a net just a little lower than tennis. It really sells itself as being, fun and seemingly low impact.
And see, that's the part that really caught my eye in these sources you shared with us. Because despite that low impact reputation, when you actually dig into the data, well, this booming sport comes with its own, frankly, fair share of injuries.
The paradox.
Exactly. It presents some unique physical challenges you might not expect, and it requires some specific thinking around prevention and, getting back out there if something happens.
That paradox is absolutely key. You might not have the same kind of constant pounding as, say, running a marathon, but the type of movements pickleball demands, it puts a very specific kind of stress on the body.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive, then, is to take these sources you've given us, these articles, reports, bits of research, and really unpack the common pickleball injuries.
Okay.
We want to understand why they're happening, sort of looking at it through a physiotherapist's lens, and maybe most importantly, dig into what the sources say are the crucial strategies for preventing them, treating them, and recovering effectively.
Yeah, think of this as your shortcut. In the next few minutes, you'll get a really solid understanding of the physical realities of this incredibly popular sport. So you are better informed, whether you're already hooked on pickleball or maybe just curious about what all the fuss is about.
Okay, let's start with that popularity then. Who's actually playing? We mentioned the explosive growth.
Right.
The average player age is around 35, I think, with the highest participation actually among 25 to 37-year-olds, based on that CIFA report. But it has really struck a chord with older adults, too. It's become this, significant way for seniors to get exercise.
And that's a really crucial part of the injury conversation, actually.
How so?
Well, that accessibility means people who might have pre-existing conditions or maybe haven't been consistently active are getting into the sport.
Okay.
Because it's so engaging and fun, players, especially maybe newer players, tend to play for pretty long stretches.
Right, you get caught up in it.
Exactly. And that leads pretty quickly to fatigue. And fatigue is just a major precursor to getting injured.
Which brings us perfectly to that central point. Why low impact doesn't necessarily mean no risk. What is it about the movements in pickleball that actually cause trouble?
It really comes down to the sudden, often forceful lateral movements and those quick, sometimes pretty awkward pivots.
Okay.
So while you're maybe not covering as much ground as in tennis, those really abrupt changes in direction and the sudden stops, they put intense, concentrated stress on specific joints, tendons, and muscles.
So it's more about the suddenness and the type of motion rather than just continuous heavy load.
Precisely. It's very dynamic. Even experienced athletes who switch over to pickleball can find themselves vulnerable because the specific movement patterns are just different.
Interesting.
And you mentioned the older demographic playing. There's a really striking statistic from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. It showed that over a 5-year period, players in their 60s saw a 90-fold increase in fractures linked to pickleball.
90 times.
90 times. That number alone just tells you there's a significant physical reality here that players really need to be aware of.
Wow, a 90-fold increase. That's staggering. It really underscores the point. Okay, so let's get specific then. From a physio perspective, what are the most common injuries you see showing up from pickleball? Maybe start with the shoulder.
Yeah, shoulders are very frequent, particularly rotator cuff strains.
Okay.
This comes from those repetitive arm swings, the abrupt rotations, overhead shots,
Right.
And given that degenerative issues just become more common as we age, things like rotator cuff tears, biceps tendonitis, general tendonitis, they become more prevalent, especially in older players. It's similar to what you might see in other racket or overhead sports, but it's applied to pickleball-specific motions.
And of course, you hear about pickle elbow, right? The pickleball version of tennis elbow.
Wait, lateral epicondylitis, that pain on the outside of the elbow?
Yep.
It's caused by those constant repetitive wrist and forearm movements. You know, the flicks, the dinks at the net, the volleys. That continuous strain on the forearm muscles and tendons leads to microtrauma, inflammation, and pain, especially those rotational pronation type movements.
And knees. I imagine knees must take a hit with all that side-to-side movement and the quick stops, especially near the net, in that non-volley zone, the kitchen.
Oh, absolutely. Knee injuries are very strongly linked to sudden lateral pushes, blocking volleys at the net, and twisting motions. High velocity, awkward movements just significantly increase the risk. The sources mention common overuse issues like meniscal injuries, patellar tendinopathy, MCL strains, and also flares of existing osteoarthritis. There was a report, I think, from Current Sports Medicine Reports back in 2020 that highlighted how often these were seen in tournaments down in Southern California.
And physiotherapy is pretty key for dealing with knee issues, I assume.
Very much so. Management often involves building strength, particularly in the quads and hamstrings, manual therapy, specific exercise prescription, and crucial for those quick pickleball steps, proprioceptive training.
Proprioceptive training. Can you quickly break that down? What does that mean in this context?
Sure. Think of it as training your body's sense of where it is in space and how it's moving.
Okay.
So for knees and ankles in pickleball, it means improving your balance and coordination so your body can react quickly and hopefully correctly to those sudden shifts and stops, which reduces strain. Things like balancing on one leg or using wobble boards, that kind of stuff helps retrain those signals.
Got it. So basically training your body to stay stable when things get unstable fast on the court. What about the Achilles tendon? The sources pointed that out as a significant concern, especially for older players.
Yes, this is definitely a growing issue, particularly for players aged, say, 58 and up. The Achilles tendon takes a huge amount of load during activities that involve sudden rapid starts, stops, or pushing off the ankle.
Right.
In pickleball, that comes from quick bursts to the ball, hitting certain shots, or sudden ankle movements like dorsiflexion or inversion. Players often describe a pretty severe tearing pain.
Ouch.
There's a specific study mentioned, a 2024 one in the Sage Journal, that found 43 Achilles tendon ruptures directly linked to pickleball between 2013 and 2023.
Wow.
And there was a clear increase mirroring the sport's rise since about 2016. That's a direct correlation you really can't ignore.
No, that study definitely paints a picture. What about wrist sprains? That seems kind of intuitive with all the quick paddle work.
It does, yeah. Quick reactions, powerful strokes, constantly adjusting the paddle angle. It all involves rapid wrist movements. Sudden, forceful movements, maybe slight rotations, or just overuse can stretch or even tear the wrist ligaments. You'll see swelling, maybe some numbness or bruising, and definitely reduce mobility.
And falls too, right? People falling could lead to wrist injuries.
Oh, absolutely. Falls are also pretty common, unfortunately, and they contribute significantly to wrist injuries as players instinctively try to catch themselves.
Okay. There was a less common one mentioned too, something about the adductor magnus, the mini hamstring.
Yes. That's interesting because it's a stronger thigh muscle, usually involved in powerful hip movements, adducting the thigh, bringing it towards the midline.
Right.
While complete tears are maybe rare in pickleball compared to some other sports, the adductor muscles, especially the adductor longus, which is often what people mean by a pulled groin, they take a lot of stress from those wide steps, and the abducting force is moving away from the body's midline.
Okay.
That sudden deceleration, the eccentric load where the muscle is lengthening while it's under tension during quick defensive or lateral moves, that can strain or partially tear these muscles. It's the kind of injury you might associate more with sprinting or soccer, but now we're seeing it pop up in pickleball.
Eccentric load. So that's when you're actively trying to slow down a movement or absorb force.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Like when you're lowering a heavy weight slowly, or in pickleball, when you suddenly have to slam on the brakes laterally. That's a high stress demand on muscles like the adductors, and it also contributes to risks elsewhere in the lower extremity.
And that kind of brings us to another major source of injury, which sounds almost deceptively simple.
Yeah.
Just slips, trips, and falls, especially near that kitchen line.
Yes, the kitchen or non-volley zone rule is a big factor here. It requires players to stop their forward momentum before entering it to hit a volley.
Right.
This demands a very quick, very controlled stop, often right at the line. It requires both, mental processing and the physical capability to handle that abrupt deceleration. That eccentric load we just talked about is significant here. And if your footwear isn't right, or the court surface is maybe uneven or slippery, or you're just not prepared physically or mentally for that sudden stop, you're at a much higher risk of losing your balance and falling. It impacts your balance, puts biomechanical stress on various joints, and can even lead to overcompensation injuries down the line.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why of these common injuries, really linking them back to the specific demands of pickleball. Now, once an injury happens, or even better, to prevent one, the sources really seem to emphasize the role of physiotherapy. What does that look like? How do you manage these issues? And is there a difference between treating, say, a sudden ankle sprain versus that chronic pickle elbow pain?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference in management. Chronic injuries like that elbow pain often have prolonged symptoms. They might involve more established tissue damage or stiffness, maybe restricted mobility because they've developed over time from repetitive stress, or maybe delayed treatment.
Right.
Acute injuries like a sprain or more sudden events. But regardless, physiotherapy management is always tailored to the individual. It's based on the specific injury, their playing level, their overall health, and what the recovery goals are. But there are absolutely key principles that apply.
And the sources detail several approaches. Strength training seems pretty foundational.
Oh, it's absolutely essential, both before playing, for prevention, and afterwards for rehab. And the strength training needs to be dynamic and sport-specific. Meaning building strength in both upper and lower body muscles in ways that mimic pickleball movements. Doing this before you even step on the court can significantly reduce your injury risk. For pickleball, you really want to focus on strengthening wrists for grip strength and stability, ankles for handling those multi-directional movements, and shoulders for all the swings and overheads.
Flexibility and balance are also highlighted quite a bit.
They really go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Good flexibility in the key muscle groups, think glutes, hip muscles, quads, calves, helps with range of motion and reduces muscle strain during those lunges and reaches. And balance exercises, whether using things like balance boards or even just simple tandem walking heel to toe, improve your dynamic and reactive balance. This is vital for maintaining stability during those quick stops and direction changes on the court. It really improves that proprioceptive signaling we talked about earlier, helping your body react better.
And what about preparing for those quick, almost explosive movements the sport requires?
Right. That's where plyometric and agility training comes in.
Okay.
These involve exercises that use both eccentric and concentric contractions rapidly. Things like jumping, hopping, quick lateral bounds. They improve your ability to change direction quickly, sprint short distances effectively, and boost your overall agility, which is really core to playing pickleball well and safely.
And given how common shoulder injuries are, specific strengthening for that area must be important too.
Critically important, yes. Rotator cuff strengthening and general shoulder stability exercises are vital.
Yeah.
Dynamic strengthening improves not just strength, but also mobility and stability during all those overhead and swinging motions. The sources even mention specific programs, sometimes designed for other overhead athletes, like baseball pitchers, something called the Throwers 10 program, which can be really beneficial for improving shoulder mechanics in pickleball players too.
Interesting. And finally, core stability was mentioned.
Your core is, well, it's your powerhouse. Strong core muscles improve your posture, they help stabilize your spine, and they ensure efficient power transfer when you're changing directions or generating force for a shot.
Right.
Exercises like circuit training that incorporate work for the hip abductors, squatting, lunging, even weight-bearing ankle dorsiflexion, these all contribute to better pelvic and core stability. And that's really foundational for pretty much all the movements you make in pickleball.
It really sounds like comprehensive physical preparation is key, which leads us naturally to prevention. What are the practical steps players can take based on these sources to avoid getting hurt in the first place?
Yeah, the sources are actually very clear and practical here. First and foremost, always warm up properly. Dedicate a good 10 to 15 minutes before you start playing. Focus on dynamic stretches, range of motion exercises, things like lunges, arm circles. The USA Pickleball Association specifically recommends warm-ups targeting the shoulders and quads.
Makes sense.
And, just as important, don't forget to cool down afterwards. Just some slower movement, maybe some light stretching, helps your muscles relax and helps regulate blood flow.
Proper technique came up earlier regarding injuries, but it's also a prevention strategy, right?
Absolutely. Learning and consistently using proper footwork helps you avoid those awkward, abrupt pivots that put so much strain on knees and ankles. Cross-training is also great for building general fitness and sport-specific strength. And maybe the most crucial piece, listen to your body. Don't try to push through pain.
Right.
Avoid playing to the point of exhaustion. Stay well hydrated and take breaks, especially during long sessions. Fatigue is just a huge risk multiplier for injury.
What about gear? Does that make a big difference in prevention?
A huge difference, yes. Court shoes are practically non-negotiable.
Why court shoes specifically?
They have the right kind of tread for multi-directional movement on a court surface, and they provide crucial lateral support for your ankles to help prevent sprains. Running shoes, for example, are designed for forward motion, not side-to-side cuts.
Got it.
Your paddle grip matters too. Using a neutral grip can help reduce strain on the elbow and wrist tendons. And for players who might have a history of instability, using things like ankle braces, wrist guards, or even taping can provide valuable extra support.
And something that really stood out in the sources was the strong emphasis on protective eyewear.
Yes, this is becoming increasingly important and frankly should be standard practice. Ocular injuries, eye injuries, are a significant and unfortunately rising concern in pickleball.
Really? What kind?
Things like retinal tears, corneal abrasions, even traumatic lens subluxation, where the lens inside your eye gets knocked out of place. These are serious conditions showing up in emergency rooms, directly linked to pickleball impacts from balls or paddles. So wearing protective eyewear isn't just like a good idea. It's strongly advised, even mandatory in some tournaments and clubs now. It protects you from stray balls, paddle impacts, even maybe debris, and polarized lenses can also help with visibility and reducing glare on the court.
Okay, good to know. Managing your training load, sort of easing into it, that's another piece of the puzzle.
Definitely. You don't want to go from playing casually once a week to suddenly playing intense games for hours every single day.
Right.
Gradually increase your playtime and the intensity of your games. Allow your body time to adapt and build resilience. And for novice players, even the paddle choice can impact injury risk, apparently. A firm grip and a lighter head weight on the paddle can help reduce strain on the elbow and wrist, avoiding that pickle elbow. A heavier head might increase the risk.
Interesting detail.
Yeah, the overall message from the sources is really clear.
Yeah.
Many, if not most, of these injuries are preventable with smart practices and preparation.
And they used a term prehabilitation. What exactly does that mean?
Prehabilitation, or prehab, is essentially about preparing your body before you engage intensely in an activity, especially if it's new to you or if you're maybe starting from a lower level of fitness.
Okay.
It's about increasing your function and fitness proactively before the demands of the sport really kick in. It's particularly recommended for older individuals or anyone who might be deconditioned. Ideally, it should be guided by a physiotherapist who can consider any existing health conditions and tailor the program.
So building the foundation before you add the stress.
Exactly. It's about building that foundation before the stress of the sport begins to minimize the risk when you do start playing more.
Okay, so if we had to just boil it down, sum up the key prevention recommendations from the experts cited in these sources.
They really boil down to a few core principles, I think. First, always warm up and cool down. Dedicate those 10-15 minutes consistently.
Right.
Second, use proper footwear and gear, especially those court shoes, and absolutely consider mandatory protective eyewear. And third, maybe most fundamentally, play smart and listen to your body. Avoid exhaustion, stay hydrated, take breaks when you need them, learn proper technique, and build your strength and agility gradually. Don't ignore pain signals.
Okay, let's try and bring this all together then. What we've really learned from digging into these sources is that pickleball is this, well, it's a phenomenon. It's incredibly fun, super popular, and seems low impact on the surface.
Right.
But that specific blend of quick lateral shifts, sudden stops, and pivots creates distinct injury risks, particularly in common areas like the shoulder, elbow, knees, ankles, and even the wrists.
Exactly. The biomechanics of the game itself, combined perhaps with its broad accessibility to demographics who might be less physically prepared for those specific dynamic movements, those are key factors driving these injury patterns.
But the really encouraging takeaway, I think, is that with the right preparation and just smart practices, things like building appropriate strength, flexibility, balance, agility, using the proper gear, always warming up, and just being mindful of your body's limits, players of all ages can significantly reduce their risk.
Definitely.
And if an injury does happen, physiotherapy offers really crucial, targeted strategies for recovery and for getting safely back on the court eventually. It's really about respecting the actual demands the sport places on your body, even if it looks easy.
Precisely. It definitely challenges that perception that low impact automatically means you don't need to prepare physically in a specific way.
So, as you, our listener, think about this deep dive, here's maybe something to mull over. Given the demographic trends we talked about, lots of older adults picking up the sport, and the unexpected physical stresses highlighted in an activity that looks as gentle as pickleball, how does understanding its specific biomechanics maybe change the way we should approach injury prevention and physical preparation for any activity, especially as we get older?
That's a good question.
It really makes you think differently about how we define safe exercise and what real preparation entails, doesn't it?